Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 10th, 2021 regular meeting of the Hillsborough City Planning Commission. Excuse me. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation is encouraged. To minimize feedback in the audio, all participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should raise their hand or unmute themselves and turn on their camera to indicate they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. That's planner@plancom.org, PLANNER@plancom.org. For action items, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chair. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will ask questions. Public comment will be closed, and upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I'll ask Commissioner Bernstein to lead us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May God grant our Planning Commission, all staff, and all assembled here today to continue making decisions that are in the best interests of our fellow citizens in Hillsborough County. And may God also grant us the strength to get through this pandemic as safely and healthy as possible and see to better days ahead. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Up next, I'll ask that the clerk please call roll.
Good afternoon, Joseph.
Here.
Bernstein.
Here.
Cardenas.
Here.
Dix. Commissioner Dix.
I'm here. I have a little technical difficulty, but I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Dowdy.
Here.
Handy.
Here.
Kress.
Here.
Linkus.
Here.
Linkus.
Here. Excuse me.
Marina.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Dickerson.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, up next is the approval of the minutes for the following meetings: the regular meeting for April 12th, 2021, and the public hearing on City of Tampa and Hillsborough County Plan Amendments, April 12th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
That is a motion by Commissioner Powell, a second by Commissioner Dowdy? Okay. Tie goes to the lady then. Second by Commissioner Kress. All right. No more discussion. I'll ask the clerk to take a roll call vote on that.
Joseph.
Yes.
Bernstein.
Yes.
Cardenas.
Yes.
Dix.
Yes.
Dowdy.
Yes.
Handy.
Yes.
Kress.
Yes.
Linkus.
Yes.
Marina.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you. All right. I didn't check my email before we started this meeting, so I'm going to ask Ms. Zornita and also the HTV people, did we have any people sign up for public comment as public input for items not on the agenda scheduled next?
We did not have anyone sign up for that item.
Okay. Thank you very much. Since we have no public input, we will move on to our next agenda, item 3. Action items 3A. We will start with the Hillsborough County Land Development Code amendments. Are these all being presented by the same person? Is that why there's only one staff member? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then I will send it over to Jiwuan Haley for LDC 20-0721, 20-0722, 21-0416, and 21-0541.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, my name is Jiwuan Haley with the Planning Commission. I will, just for the record, I will state that all of the amendments were found consistent with the comprehensive plan, but I will be introducing Israel Monsanto for, so he can present each LDC amendment item. So without further ado, here's Israel Monsanto. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Israel Monsanto, Hillsborough County Development Services. I will share my screen with a PowerPoint presentation for this afternoon. I believe I will have to switch probably. Let me know if I need to switch it or if that's fine.
You do need to switch it, Mr. Monsanto.
Thank you. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, this is the Land Development Code text amendments items for round 1 of 2021. The second and final Board of County Commissioners public hearing will be on May 20th when these LDC amendments will be adopted. These items, Commissioners, were presented at your workshop meeting last month. The amendments were also presented at the first public hearing for the County Commissioners last April. There are no significant changes based on the first workshop that we had in front of you. LDC 20-0722, time limit to approve plan developments, was updated after the first board meeting, and we'll go in detail shortly during my presentation. The first item, I'll go back. After I present each presentation and each slide, then you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and go from there. So 20-0721, this is public testimony by a party of record. The purpose, again, is to allow public testimony by a party of record at the Board of County Commissioners land use meeting for rezoning applications without requiring the party of record to file requests for oral argument. With these text amendments, it will be permissible by a party of record to provide public testimony without first having to file the request for oral argument through the clerk's office. Testimony provided at the board land use meeting will still need to be within the record of the hearing before the land use hearing officer. And again, anyone providing testimony before the county commissioners will still need to qualify as a party of record, and everything that was put at the zoning hearing master will still be the record that will have to be presented by any party of record. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Monsanto. All right. So for this first item, do we have any public comment on this item? Anyone signed up?
We did not have anyone signed up.
Okay. All right, then I will open it up to the commissioners. Are there any questions or discussions on this item, LDC 20-0721? Not seeing any in the room. I am not seeing any hands raised.
And just to be clear, we'd like a motion and a resolution on each one.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's why I started with
just making
721.
sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right, not seeing any hands raised online. Then I will go ahead and close comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners on 20-0721. Commissioner Bernstein, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we vote in support of LDC 20-0721 concerning modifying oral argument procedures.
Second.
All right, that's a motion by Commissioner Bernstein for approval. Second by Commissioner Marino. Is there any more discussion on this item from the commissioners? Seeing none, I will ask, check online. Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Dix,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kress,
Yes.
Linkus,
Yes.
Marina,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to LDC 20-0722. Mr. Monsanto.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next land development code item is LDC 200722. This is a time limit to approve plan developments, districts, and general site plans. The purpose is to establish a time limit to approve plan developments, general development plans after rezoning approval by the Board of County Commissioners. The main changes that we did compared to the workshop that we had in front of you, Commissioner, was that all the reevaluation that will be done after a PD expires will consider the existing transportation network and how any modification to the previously approved internal transportation network, external access points, and any conditions pertaining to the internal transportation network and external access points would affect the ability for the project to be developed with the approved uses. So the changes that will be evaluated is if a PD comes back and the changes would affect that portion of the PD. So those conditions related to transportation, internal access point, and external access points. So that was a specification that we did for this text amendment. So again, I will go back to the purpose. The purpose again is to establish a time limit for approved plan developments and general PD plans after the rezoning approval by the Board of County Commissioners. The time limit expiration would apply only to the internal transportation network and external access points, as well as for any conditions related to these items. Expiration of PD general plans will rely upon site construction plan or an equivalent to be approved within 5 years or longer of time if approved by the board of the effective date of plan development rezoning or last modification of the PD. The board may approve a duration exceeding those 5 years, supported by evidence that the characteristics of the property or the scope, scale, or anticipated timing or phasing of the project would make a longer duration more practical or is reasonable necessary to complete the project in its entirety. And I am available if you have any questions or clarifications.
Thank you, sir. Did we have any public comment sign up on this one?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will turn it over to the commissioners for this item 20-0722. Are there any, Commissioner Bernstein, do you have comments?
Yeah, more a question that perhaps someone can help answer. The notion of a cap makes sense to me. My only question was whether any thought was given to a shorter period of time, say 4 years, something commensurate with the term of a county commissioner, him or herself. Do we know the answer to that, if there's any thought given to a shorter period of time?
Right now, the way it is written is the minimum will be 5 years. That will be the minimum. There is no language or consideration if it was a time expiration that will be less than that.
Thank you.
All right, I see Commissioner Dickerson has her hand raised on the line.
Yes. I voiced some concerns when this initially came through the Planning Commission, just because as it pertains to internal school sites dedicated within PDs, I'm concerned that if we establish the internal circulation and then the school district moves forward in designing a school site based on those access points, that could cause a pinch point in the future. I do think that probably could be resolved with some sort of condition, because it's kind of an odd situation, because the owners have the PD tracking and the timing, but we would be an end user that's maybe looking forward and anticipating using that site. So we would just have to really coordinate closely with the county, but I just did want to mention that concern.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dickerson. Commissioner Dowdy. Oh, lights out. No more comments. Commissioner, did you have one? Commissioner Kress, did you? Oh, Commissioner Marino.
Well, I had a question for Mr. Monsanto. Just to, I guess, confirm my own question, the 5 years, I think that's similar to the city of Tampa's time limit on PDs. I was just trying to search it here, but I think that's correct. So I don't know if you're able to confirm that or not, but to me, it would make sense to have Hillsborough County and the city at least, pretty close together. So I would be in favor of that. And then my second question is related to Commissioner Dickinson's comment. Is it possible for us to approve this with an addendum that it shall not apply to Hillsborough County School District?
Commissioner, yes, so to your first question, yes, we looked at nearby jurisdictions, and the city of Tampa was one of the examples. So yes, you are correct on your first question. On the second question, just to clarify, if there is a school site within a PD and there are construction plans coming in within 5 years, or also could be more than 5 years, depending on a condition that can be proposed as part of the PD or changes to a PD. So that could be accomplished through conditions, and the board would ultimately approve it. And also, if a site comes in within the PD and gets construction approval within either 5 years or the longer period of time that was approved by the board, then that construction plan is done and the site is built, then that site is built within the PD. There is nothing that needs to be changed in the future. And also, if a site plan is approved, but then the expiration then will go with the construction plans, and construction plans get additional timing after approved. So that will be probably longer than the approved PD plan. For the addendum, I mean, you can provide your recommendations, and that's something that staff could ultimately put on in front of the commissioners at the second public hearing in later this month, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino. Yes, Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Monsanto, could you put up your slide presentation that you had just a second ago? I had a question off of that.
I believe it's up now.
Perfect, thank you. So as I'm understanding you explain this, the PD itself, is that what expires after 5 years, or is it just those items that pertain to the transportation network? That's
right,
what I'm confused about.
No, you're correct. It will be the items pertaining to the transportation network, external access points, etc. So everything that's on the plan that's related to those items, and also conditions of approval related to those items. That's the only thing that would expire.
So if a project goes for a PD, and just for simple numbers, it's a single family or multifamily for 200 units, they're not having to go back through after 5 years to recertify that portion of the PD. It's just something that would pertain to the transportation as it relates to that PD.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I don't understand why that portion is even in there when we have a mobility fee. And isn't that sort of what the mobility fee process is supposed to kind of take into account as they get further down the line within development services, they figure out the transportation, the issues, and then the mobility fee is there to solve whatever problem may exist.
Yeah, well, mobility fees are a different set of items, because what we're talking about here is how the site is constructed and designed compared to the overall transportation network of an area. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Mobility fees will apply regardless, in time when they come in and build and actually develop the site, depending on the entitlements. But what we're going to be looking here is whether the transportation network and location of access points still makes sense with co-regulations at that time, and also with comprehensive plans at that time if they expire.
So this is like
And
bringing in like concurrency,
Well,
essentially.
if I could mention, this expiration only occurs if somebody has not moved forward into the site development and construction plan process within that 5 years. So once they move into that process, then they are required to pay their mobility fees as they get their building permits. So all of that kicks in. So it would be if somebody got their PD approved and then did not progress through that process for 5 years. And we have this with many PDs in South County that were approved in the 80s, for example. And now they're coming in building and they have things drawn on their plans that are sometimes 20 years old. And so they need to be reconfigured to match what's developed now on the other side of the road. So I think that's what this is trying to get at, is somebody who doesn't progress through the development process, that then they would reevaluate those pieces as they tie into, other things that might have developed around them.
Okay, so if they've gone ahead and they've gone through that, construction and plat approval and that's happened, but they don't put shovels in the ground, what happens then? That's what I don't also understand.
I'll let Israel, how far do they have to have gotten in the development approval process for this not to kick in?
Well, once you get your site construction approvals, you have a time expiration also for that part, which is done through our site review section. And if that also expires, then, and nothing else comes after that expiration of those construction plans, then you will go back, and then that's when you will need to recertify your PD. So you could have a PD approved, let's say, after this is adopted. You come in, you have an X amount of single-family units, you get it approved, you get 5 years maximum. And then at the 4th year, you come in and you submit your site construction plans or your plat, and then you get your final plat. And then the expiration will now apply for those construction plans. Will move on past those 5 years. So you will get, for example, 3 more years. So that's your new expiration. But if you don't break ground and you let that expire as well, then at that point your PD expiration will kick in. You will be expired at that point if you don't go with the expiration plan of your construction plans approval.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Dowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Israel, can you just clarify from what I see of the amendment? It appears that you have to achieve construction site plan approval within that 5-year period, not just submit the documents. And I'm wondering if there's any consideration possibly for being I can get it, you don't want somebody to wait 4 years and 364 days to submit their site plan, but somebody could be going through the process, and I mean, site plan approval takes time to meet the varied regs and the various prevailing winds of the time as far as that goes, to be able to get the approvals done. I hesitate to penalize people who have been doing their due diligence and have been following the process and may be 75 or 80% through but don't have a permit in place, to tell them that they have to go back and start their process all over again. That seems unnecessarily punitive. And is there any provision in here other than the language that says or longer if approved by the board, that can provide relief to the applicant.
Sure. Both the site review process, once you get construction plans approval, they may be, you can get an extension. And also the PD would allow, there is a provision in this language that would allow an extension, or a developer to request an extension of those, of the PD expiration. So if they got, like you said, instead of 5 years, they got 7 years as part of the PD rezoning, and they never got a construction plan approved, they can come back to the county and request an extension, and that's in the provision that we are presenting to the board. There is a provision that a developer can ask for an extension of that time.
Well, if I can follow up, I'm getting that they can ask for an extension, but they have to ask it of the Board of County Commissioners. There's not like an automatic trigger that says they have been working through their process, and basically they're going to have to go back and ask for permission. Markets, situations, and like I said, the prevailing winds and the political climate aren't necessarily predictable when you apply for your PD. As Commissioner Bernstein brought up, county commission are 4-year terms, and they could be in the middle of one when you apply for a PD, and the board could change, and the politics could change, and the economy can change, and there's a lot of things that can possibly happen that would affect the timing of things. I think I understand the thought process behind what this amendment is and what they're trying to avoid. I'm also trying to see if there's a way to avoid some unnecessary consequences of the language, and seeing if there isn't anything in here that says if you've applied by 3 years, or if you've put site plans in by 3 years, we're not going to, shut off the switch at 5 if you haven't gotten your approval yet because you're working through the process. Same token, it doesn't mean that somebody needs to put one in and they sit on it and they don't work on it. But I'm just trying to see if there's a way to avoid having to necessarily go back and get the board's blessing should one of these circumstances arise.
Commissioner, the provision that's being proposed as part of this text amendment does include a request that a developer can ask to the administrator to extend the 1 year. So if you got an approval of 5 years and you still don't have any construction plan approval, there would be an administrative review that the developer can submit to extend that an additional year. So they don't have to go back to the board. There's got to be a written explanation as to the status of the project and the need for extension. So that will be an administrative process. And then in addition to that, once you submit construction plans within those 5 years, and you don't build, or you can also request an extension of those construction plans. So there will be many mechanisms before you let it expire up to the absolute, before you have to go back to the Board of County Commissioners. And I understand your concerns.
Okay, yeah, good to hear that there are at least some mechanisms short of having to go back in front of the board in order to be able to continue the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowdy. I see Commissioner Dickerson still has her hand raised. You have another comment? Please go ahead.
Yes. So on this, it would definitely be my preference to be excluded from this, just because, as well, I was thinking more about it. Really, there's two scenarios. One scenario is if we have a dedicated school site within a developer's PD, which is a concern because per the interlocal, we have, as a school district, different requirements for construction approval than a developer. So we don't have to submit necessarily formal construction plans. And I just want to make sure we don't kind of fall in between the cracks on that one. And so that's something that we may want to address, not only in a condition, but maybe in a future interlocal agreement revision as well. And then also, there could be situations where we're the developer and we're required to do a plan development, which happens frequently that, you know, county staff wants us to go through a plan development versus Euclidean zoning. So all of the ones that I've entitled thus far have been PDs. And so that is a little concerning when we're trying to build our inventory for the 5-year to 10-year range now of future school sites, to go through the PD process. And then obviously, you know, that could expire. And then also I had a question too, how are the applicants going to be notified of the expirations of the PDs? Are you going to reach out to them prior, or is it basically on the applicant to know that expiration date, and if they miss it, they miss it? And I also just want to know, you know, being a developer in the school system, there is a lot of investment that occurs up front just to get a PD approved. And I totally understand not wanting to have those PDs lie out there for eternity, but I think it's a very hard issue to pin down without having unintended consequences. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dickerson. Mr. Monsanto, I did have a question also. I was looking at some of the language in the document that the slides that you were showing there, and it says, you know, it's going to be tied to internal transportation network and then the external access points, but it also says, as well as for any conditions related to internal transportation network. How broad do you think that could possibly reach? Any conditions related to internal transportation in a PD development?
Yeah, typically our conditions for PDs approved are structured that you have the conditions of approval for related to transportation. If there is a condition that would specifically note connectivity or location of access point, those are the conditions that will be subject to this amendment. Or any conditions that reflects what's shown on the plan and so on, or points of connections in relationship to the surrounding public roads. That's basically what that.
So this could have broader reach than just the streets, and could have some direct implication on the overall design of the thing.
It could. I mean, again, plan developments are site regulated. And when you have a PD that shows the overall design of the internal network and the location of the points, as well as conditions that would relate to those graphics, that's what will be subject these text amendments. So it could be as simple as how the road are aligned to match what's around it at that point in time when the PD was approved, and then down the road when it expires, then we'll have to reevaluate based on what the 16 condition is on that point, what the codes requirements are at that point in time, and the comprehensive plan policy at that time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, I was just, sorry for the question. I was just trying to wrap my head around it because I'd initially thought it was strictly about the transportation and the internal transportation. I kind of thought of it that way the first time, where we're really going to be focused on roads, and it seems like it could be a kind of a Pandora's box in certain instances that could start to open up into a lot of different things. So that's just something that I hadn't considered, but thank you for the information. Are there any more? Commissioner Dowdy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had, when you were asking your question, a thought popped into my mind. Are there current requirements for the developers who are looking to do a PD to review the adjacent properties for approved PDs to try to tie their transportation networks together? And if so, could there be some sort of a trigger put into the system that says should another development propose access points or transportation things that might change the conditions of an approved PD, trigger this possibility that they're going to have to go, that there's some kind of a notification process that goes through that lets people know the potential jeopardy that's being attached. There may not be an answer for that, but it's something that just popped into my mind. Our director's example of some previous PDs that are 20 years old, and now there may be an access point problem. Well, my question is, how did that access point problem arise? Did somebody not know that there was an approved connection point and build another one? And that's not necessarily entirely on the developer. That's partially on the county. So I wonder if there's a way to, I don't know if you understand my question.
I do understand your question, and I do believe that now it is a requirement, Israel can probably confirm, of the Development Review Procedures Manual, that new PD site plans come in and show the approved zonings and pattern on surrounding properties. That did not used to be the case. And so, again, some of this, I believe, was a Land Development Code amendment directed by the Board of County Commissioners that, was related to a problem they were seeing as they were seeing things come before them at the board land use meetings, may be related to some things that are, historical problems versus current ones. I don't know, but I believe that now they are required to show those things on their site plans.
Okay, I think that requirement could tend to mitigate the potential problems that the language says to me, having something along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowdy. Are there any more comments from the commissioners? Do you have a comment, Commissioner Bernstein? No? Let me just check on the WebEx one time. And I don't see anyone there. So with that, I will go ahead and close public comment and open it up to the commissioners for a motion on this item.
I move that we approve the attached resolution finding the proposed land development code text amendment language proposing to limit time after a plan development general site plan approved by a BOCC to remain active and receive a site plan development approvals consistent with the future Hillsborough comprehensive plan, and forward this recommendation to Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Marino with approval.
Well, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask, do you want to add anything about schools?
I guess if it's, Ms. Dickerson would be the expert on this. Is it better to do it through this avenue versus an interlocal agreement, I think was one of the options she said, or?
I mean, it would be my preference to be exempted at this stage, because that would make life easier. But if we are unable to do that, then we can try to roll it into a future interlocal or condition as part of the PD. But thanks.
Then, okay, so can I amend my motion?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'll go with the condition I said previously that the school district of Hillsborough County is excluded from this amendment.
All right. I have a motion for approval on the condition that the school district is removed or excluded from this amendment here.
Can I clarify that that's a motion of consistency with the comprehensive plan?
Sorry, consistency, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Motion for consistency finding. Do I have a second to the amended motion? Commissioner Bernstein.
I'll second that.
Right. We have a motion for consistency by Commissioner Marino, a second by Commissioner Bernstein. Is there any more discussion on this item from the commissioners? Seeing no hands online or lights, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Dix,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kress,
Yes.
Linkus,
Yes.
Marina,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you. All right, next item up, LDC 210416, and I believe it's back to you again, Mr. Monsanto.
Yes, thank you. LDC 210416, this text amendment would create a sufficiency review meeting. The purpose of this text amendment is to repurpose the mandated pre-application submittal conferences to a mandated meeting post-application submittal. And this text amendment hasn't changed compared to when it was presented to you originally, commissioners. And again, this right now, currently, there is a pre-application submittal meeting, which are mandated. However, these are based on draft materials that often change prior to formal application submittal. A mandated meeting would be placed in time for the review process after the application submittal, where staff comments have the greatest benefit when we communicate questions and concerns to applicants in the process. This would allow staff and the applicant communication to be based on more refined materials during the review of the application. And we will maintain the pre-application meeting upon request, so it won't be mandated at that point. And this concludes the presentation of this LDC amendment.
Thank you. Anyone sign up for this one? Nope. All right. Then we will move on to the commissioners. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners on this item? Commissioner Dowdy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'd like to, this is one that makes some sense to me in that the sufficiency review meeting that happens after submittal forces the applicant to make sure that they have a sufficient submittal, one, but it also forces the staff comments to be pertinent and direct and basically locked in. They have to be, they can be relied upon for the design of the site. So I tend to think this one makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowdy. Are there any more comments or questions from the commissioners? All right, not seeing any in here or hands raised online. I'll go ahead and close public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Dowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the resolution finding the text amendment language consistent with the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan and forward it to the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, motion of consistency by, who was that? Commissioner Marino? Oh, Commissioner Grass? Who was it? Marino, okay. I have a motion for consistency by Commissioner Dowdy. A second to that motion by Commissioner Marino. Is there any more discussion on this item from the commissioners? Seeing none, I will ask, just check on. Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Dix,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kress,
Yes.
Linkus,
Yes.
Marina,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-0.
Thank you very much. All right. On to LDC 210541, last one. Back to you again, Mr. Monsanto.
Thank you. LDC 210541, Special Use Land Excavation Permits Review and Approval Procedure. The purpose of this text amendment is to change the review procedure of land excavation and special use permits. No changes were conducted to this text amendment compared to the workshop we had, commissioners. This amendment would not modify the review process for these special use permits, which would require approval by the Board of County Commissioners, and it will no longer be presented at the Land Use Hearing Officer and approved by the Land Use Hearing Officer. Land Development Code Section 61154 will make references now to 100600, which is the rezoning as a personal appearance procedures instead of the LUHO. And staff will review and again will be presented at the land use meetings in front of the Board of County Commissioners. Just so you know also, Commissioners, the County Attorney's Office is always involved in all these reviews. They've been involved in this particular as well. They found this to be the language in the proposal to be consistent with other texts in the code. We actually had other permits in the past that were reviewed and approved by the board, and they were moved to the zoning hearing master or the land use hearing officer in the past, and sometimes they are brought back to in front of the commissioner. So that's something typical that we see in our land development code, just so you know. And this concludes my presentation of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Monsanto. Was there anyone sign up for public comment on this item?
No.
Nope. Okay. Then kicking it over to the commissioners, are there any comments or questions from the commissioners on this item? Check on the WebEx. Commissioner Dowdy? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll just make a comment. This is one that I guess the language may be consistent with the comprehensive plan, but I don't particularly care for it. Seems to me to be an unnecessary interjection of politics into a process, but it also strikes me a little bit as a bit of a vote of no confidence in staff, in that they're taking away the decision-making ability if the review process and stuff hasn't changed. Again, the language itself may be consistent, and I'll have to hold my nose to vote for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dowdy. I'd probably echo that sentiment too. I didn't think it was consistent, though. Obviously, I'm not going to make the motion because I'm the chair. The reason, I had some questions about this one, and it's funny that this one comes up at the end of all the other ones that we got, because if you notice the trend in the ones that we've received thus far, there's been a specific purpose set to all of them, to cut time down, to reorganize a process, to make more efficiency here, to take care of something that's been hanging about. And this one there's no purpose given whatsoever. It's just simply they want to change the process. If there was a reason for changing the process to make it better, I think that is consistent with our county's comprehensive plan. To just be changing things willy-nilly on people's feelings, elected officials' feelings, I don't believe is consistent with our comprehensive plan. So I could look at the same goals and objectives that were cited for this and say that it's inconsistent simply because there's no reasoning given for changing it. And in that respect, I won't be voting for this. I think it seems ridiculous to me. And maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Monsanto. Maybe you can speak a little bit more to the purpose, but I've reread this thing a couple times and I don't see any reasoning for this.
Thank you, Commissioners. This, again, that you mentioned, this was directed by the Board of County Commissioners. The type of permit and the intensity and the scale and the impact, that was felt that the Board of County Commissioners wanted to do the approval on this. Again, this was directed by the board. So you make your vote, and we respect that.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Monsanto, for that. I do have a follow-up question for you, Mr. Monsanto, and I suppose it goes to the basis for the consistency recommendation that appears to be coming from staff on this one. I mean, for us to, it seems to me, vote in favor of this proposal, we should be finding consistency with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future Hillsborough comprehensive plan. So I suppose my question to you, sir, would be, did staff identify any specific goals, objectives, or policies within the plan that were consistent with this measure? And if so, maybe you could enlighten us on those. It might help us form an opinion on the voting process.
I think that might be better referred to Planning Commission staff, because that was our purview in our review of the item, and the policies that Jiwuan cited in the resolution from the conservation and aquifer recharge element speak to regulating the location and operation of land excavations to minimize negative impacts on surrounding properties, and to, the policy that follows, policy 11.5, reiterates that same issue of minimizing negative impacts on surrounding properties. So what we were looking for was assurance that we still had a process that was evaluating that and ensuring that that was taken into consideration, and whether it's done by a land use hearing officer or done by the Board of County Commissioners, the process still embodies those components.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To follow up on what Melissa, you just said, so we don't have that process now?
The process today is handled through a review that is, there's a public hearing. The final decision is made by the land use hearing officer. The process that's proposed would have a public hearing. The final decision would be made by the Board of County Commissioners. So from our standpoint, who the final decision maker was not an issue of consistency with the comprehensive plan. The issue is that there is a process that ensures that negative impacts of these types of uses are able to be mitigated and evaluated. And so this is, I think, an example of one of those cases where the comprehensive plan does not specify the process must be done this way. It specifies that there needs to be a process to evaluate and ensure that these things are taken care of, and whether you do it with a process that is handled by a land use hearing officer or the BOCC, from staff standpoint, we would find both of those processes consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Because I sort of want to echo what my two commissioners here have said, that this seems to be a little more of a political issue, potentially, than anything else, and as it's going to relate to just, future developments that, developers may need to, dig for, for dirt or something like that, and that's just going to make things, to me, a little more political and a little more arduous. So I think I agree with you all, but glad to hear from some of my other folks first.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Linkus, yes.
I have a question, and I'm not sure who would be the appropriate person to answer, but is perhaps the intent here, or would the effect of this here be to potentially notify and involve the public more extensively? Is that the difference between having the land use hearing officer and the more public forum?
I believe, and Israel, please correct me if I'm wrong, but both processes would involve a public hearing. It's just a difference of who the decision maker is. Is that correct?
Correct, Melissa Zornita. Is the same. It's a public hearing process for both. It's just what hearing is presented, but it's the same in terms of the public hearing process.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
I did have another quick question for you, Mr. Monsanto. I noticed too also in the process, besides the lack of purpose and reasoning offered, it seemed like the land use hearing officer process is very specific, and it seemed like there were avenues set up for an applicant to be able to disagree with the outcomes of a land use hearing in very specific steps. You can request another hearing, you can go to an appeals board, you can kind of move up a chain. Was there any thought given to how that would work when this gets switched over to the Board of County Commissioners? If there's any recourse or any, how would that work on that side? Because when I read through the sections, because this is the way we're handling it, we're switching from pointing at one section in the land development code to pointing to a new section. I think we're going from what, 10.2 to 10.6 or something like that. But when I read the two sections, the new section that we're switching to doesn't have that direction. It basically ends at you show up in front of the BOCC and then you get your determination. So after that, what recourse does an applicant have? And I'm sure it exists. I'm probably just, dilettante and I just don't realize it. So I'm just wondering what other steps are there open to applicants.
Yeah, there is a process for I believe appeals for the process as well in the code, and I will have to go through here quickly just to try to find it. But I understand your question.
I believe it's 10.5.
Yeah, 10.5 deals with the LUHO, but I'm saying that there is also the appeal for the new process, the new procedure as well.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out where in the code is exactly, but I believe there is that process as well.
Okay. But it's not referred to in the changes that we see before us.
Right.
So,
No, it's not specified because typically when you refer to a specific section of the code, then everything that applies to that section will then also apply to this amendment. Yeah.
all right. Commissioner Dowdy, yes.
I think I'll just make a comment, Mr. Chair, from what I've heard from my fellow commissioners. It still strikes me that this is a political decision, and we are a recommending body. The Board of County Commissioners can overrule our ruling. So with that, I think I would be prepared to make a motion when there's no more discussion. I'm prepared to make a motion, and the board can rule as they see fit.
All right, hang on for just a moment. I see Commissioner Handy has her hand up on the line. I'm so sorry. I don't know how long you had it up, but please go ahead, Commissioner Handy.
Thank you. Yes, my hand was up for quite some time. I don't see this as a political decision. I see this as something that's representative of the citizens, particularly in South County, where this is an enormous impact on rural residents and South County residents in general. And in my own personal experience with borrow pit special use permits, the land use hearing officer does not appear to be as available to citizens. So Commissioner Lucas had a question about that. Is this about public access? And I think perhaps, even though the process is similar, we, as citizens, we don't feel like we have the same access to some unknown land use hearing officer, whereas the Board of County Commissioners are elected officials that represent us. And I think that that is a far better way to have such a significant impact on rural communities. This is a far better way to address something like this. This is not just about developers needing some dirt. This is about long-term permanent impacts to the landscape and the rural communities in which we live. So I think that we owe it to the citizens and to our rural communities that are so heavily affected to allow the board that represents these citizens to decide on things that are this impactful.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Commissioner Bernstein, please, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would just add that with all due respect to my fellow commissioner, that's the first time we're hearing about any performance issues or efficiency issues directed at the land use commissioner. And I'm not familiar with them, but for all I know, those could be specific to the individual rather than the process. But nowhere within the materials before us is there any mention of that or even any suggestion that that's what's driving this particular amendment. And that continues to be my particular concern after all of this time. And I look forward to hearing my fellow Commissioner Downey's articulated motion. But I would just say this, that until now, when land development code or other amendments are put before us, more often than not, to the chair's point, they seem to be directed at achieving some form of improvement, some form of efficiency, some form of benefit that calls upon the expertise of the people seated up here and on the line to utilize their expertise to approve recommendations that come to us. And what I've heard today so far is that our staff has done some good work, but ultimately concluded that the existing process is consistent. The proposed amendment would also be consistent, and I find that somewhat at odds with the old adage that if it's not broke, why fix it? And I feel like we're being called upon to consider a consistency finding against the backdrop of a process that doesn't seem to be broke to begin with.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Very well said. All right. Are there any more comments from the commissioners or questions? Let me check online again. Because yes, Commissioner Handy, please go ahead. I see your hand up again.
Well, I see where there's not an issue of consistency versus inconsistency. I see it's an issue, as I said before, I think perhaps it is broke, because I think it needs to be, I think there needs to be adequate representation. And I think the only way that adequate representation for all citizens can be made is to have it made by our elected officials.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. All right. Looking around the room for final comments. Commissioner Marino, yes.
Thank you. And I apologize for the question, but who appoints the land use hearing officer?
Good question. Mr. Monsanto?
Yeah, land use hearing officers are, that's a process that's done through the county, and then I think they apply. There is a hiring process, and I believe, I don't have the answer 100%, but I believe it's go through a process of interviews, and the board finally hires them.
Yes, Commissioner Marino, go ahead.
And does the officer's term overlap with the county commissioner, so that that person's term is staggered compared to the members of the county commission?
Right. They have a timing set. It doesn't necessarily correspond to the same timing of the commissioners.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Monsanto, and thank you, Commissioner Marino. Were there any more?
And commissioners, if I may,
yes.
The appeal process to the decisions by the board will basically take an applicant to the court. There is no.
So there is no appeals.
Appeals in the local.
Right.
Right.
Okay. That's what I thought when I read through the land development code. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
all right.
I just wanted to confirm. Yes.
Any more comments from our commissioners in here? Let me see. I see Commissioner Handy. I see you still have your hand up. I just wanted to double check with you.
Yes,
Okay,
I just wanted to follow up. I thought that was also a good question about how we come up with the LUHO, and that is one of the reasons that I think this decision making is far better suited to the elected board. There was a recent land use hearing officer that served for many, many, many years, and is no longer a land use hearing officer because of certain connections to development interests. So frankly, I mean, that's just one small example. However, it is one of the concerns that I have when we're putting such a weighty decision in the hands of one appointed, or rather hired one person, as opposed to full representation that something like this deserves from our elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. All right. One more to go around the room, seeing no lights on and seeing no more hands up on the WebEx or pictures. I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions. Commissioner Dowdy, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission find the current text amendment inconsistent with the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan, citing the same objectives of Objective 11 and 11.5 of the Conservation Act for a recharge element, noting the comments that have been made by this commission that the existing process isn't broken, and forward that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners and let them decide as they may.
Second.
That is a motion of inconsistency by Commissioner Dowdy and a second to that motion by Commissioner Powell. Is there any more discussion from the commissioners on this item? Seeing no lights in the room, let me check the WebEx. Seeing no hands online and no lights in the room, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein,
Yes.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Dix,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Kress,
No.
Linkus,
No.
Marina,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-3. Commissioners Handy, Kress, and Linkus voted no.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Monsanto, and Ms. Haley also for the information. Wonderful presentations. All right, moving on to our next item. We are doing briefings, and the first one is City of Plant City, March 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Cycle, PCCPA 21-01, and I'm not sure who the presenter is.
Mark Hudson, Planning Commission
Mr.
staff.
Hudson. Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Hudson.
Trying to share my screen here at the moment. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can, sir. If you press F5, it should start the slideshow.
How is that?
It looks good here, sir.
Right. Again, Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. Planning Commission staff is processing 3 plan amendments for the city of Plant City for this cycle. The first one is PC CPA 21-01. This shows you the location of the plan amendment on Plant City's vision map. It's in the northeast quadrant. To be more specific, it's west of North Wilder Road, north of East Sam Allen Road, east of Country Club Drive, and south of South Wilder Loop. Again, the identification number is PC CPA 21-01. This shows you the site that is affected by this small-scale plan amendment. The area is surrounded by a dashed lavender line. It's under an acre. It has completed the voluntary annexation process, so is now part of Plant City. Currently, there is a single-family home on the site, and you can see the surrounding areas in large lot residential development and agricultural uses. So by way of a little bit of background, this is privately initiated. I've already mentioned it's small scale being less than 10 acres, coming in slightly under 1 acre. Current land use on the site is Hillsborough County Residential 1. The applicant has requested Plant City Residential 6. This shows you the future land use map as it is adopted today. You can see to the north, west, and south, areas that are already within the city of Plant City have land use designations of residential 6, which is the applicant is requesting the same land use category. This is anticipated to be brought into the PD for this site, which is the North Park Isles residential development. And this shows you how the land use map would change if so approved by the Plant City Commission. So what are the potential impacts and how we are analyzing it to bring back to you and present for your consideration in June? Currently, the existing entitlements are 1 dwelling unit, and that would rise to 5 dwelling units if approved by the Plant City Commission. We are planning on bringing our recommendations back to you and presenting them on June 15th. I'll particularly note that that is not a Monday. It's a Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening. a special meeting night for us, and we'll be here to present those findings to you. We'll also make a very similar presentation to the Plant City Planning Board, garnering their recommendation as well on June 23rd. That's 8:30 in the morning at City Hall in the City Commission chambers. And being a small scale, this would come back to the City Commission at a projected hearing date of July 26 for their consideration. And with that, Chairman, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Hudson on this one, since it's not an action item, not doing public comment, but are there any questions from the commissioners? All right, seeing none in the room, let me check online. I don't see any hands up online. Oh, I see Commissioner Dix just popped up. Yes, Commissioner Dix, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would be remiss if I didn't renew my ever-present question of, wouldn't this been a whole lot simpler if we had reached out to that landowner and asked them if they wanted to go through the process earlier when the entire surrounding area was going through the process of their change to residential 6?
That is something that the city staff normally does, and I don't know the situation behind this particular one. I don't know if the property was entertaining selling the property at that time, and maybe their thought process changed and this is coming in later than the other annexations. I will say one thing that I mentioned to you the other day, but probably would be of interest to the entire Planning Commission, is I attended a workshop with the City Commission, and they have instructed their staff to start looking at some strategic referendums to hopefully clean up some of their borders. They feel that there's particular areas where the majority of individuals want to come in, however, may be impeded by one or two property owners and would be suitable for actually entertaining a referendum. They have not done a referendum historically for quite some time, longer than my tenure, but it's something they've asked their staff to explore to hopefully correct some of these and improve the defined boundaries of the municipality so they can serve those areas better.
Well, that's great news, Mr. Hudson. I appreciate that, and you always do a great job. I'm obviously thrilled to hear it. I'm just looking for ways, of course, to help the applicants save some money as well as saving time and effort on behalf of the staff as well. But thanks. Well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Dix. All right. Is there any more comments on this item? Seeing none no lights in the room. Seeing no one else on the WebEx, I will thank you for that presentation, Mr. Hudson, and ask for you to move on to the next one.
The next presentation is Plant City PC CPA 21-02. Again, we are processing this plan amendment for this cycle. However, this is a regular scale plan amendment, not a small scale. As you can see, it is also located in the northeast quadrant of the municipality. It's in particular close proximity to the major commercial activity center that is envisioned at the corner or at the interchange of North Park Road and Interstate 4. But more specifically, I'll note that this plan amendment is north of Interstate 4, east of Proche Street, south of East Sam Allen Road, and west of North Maryland Avenue. This shows you the affected site. It is surrounded by the lavender dashed line. It's comprised of 4 parcels. The most southern parcel, which fronts North Frontage Road, is already within the municipality, and the 3 northern parcels, as you go up North Maryland Avenue, are currently in unincorporated county with pending annexations to bring them into the municipality. So by way of a little background, this was privately initiated. Again, it is a regular scale plan amendment being over 10 acres, so there will be a transmittal hearing to seek the Commission's direction as far as transmitting this to the Department of Economic Opportunity. It's coming in just shy of 63 acres. The area that I noted that was already in Plant City has a future land use designation of industrial, and the remaining 3 parcels to the north have a land use designation of Hillsborough County Residential 1. The applicant wishes to transition all 4 of those properties to Plant City Residential 12. So this shows you the land use map as it stands today. Again, you can see the area that is surrounded by the black dashed line. And you can see the most southern parcel, which is a little over 4 acres, has an industrial plan category. And the remaining have Hillsborough County Residential 1, indicated by that light green color. You can see that some of the adjacent properties to the north, east, and west have similar designations in the county of Hillsborough County Residential 1. As you go down to the corridor of North Frontage Road, you can see that some of those areas have designations of commercial and industrial. And this shows you how the map would change to this light brown color, signifying the residential plan category of R12, which of course allows 12 dwelling units per acre. So what are the potential impacts if that was to occur? Currently, the entitlements for this site, the 3 areas within the unincorporated county have entitlements of about 58 dwelling units, and the one parcel that's already within Plant City within industrial plan category will allow up to almost 90,000 square feet of industrial uses. If the plan amendment was approved, that would transition into 755 dwelling units, multifamily, and that is what the applicant's seeking both in their land use request and also their pending PD. This is on a much similar track as the previous plan amendment. We intend to bring it back to you with our recommendation on June 15th. Again, that is a Tuesday evening. The planning board is also the same date as June 23rd. And whereas the first plan amendment would be up for adoption on July 26th, we would be seeking direction from the City Commission for transmittal to DEO on July 26th, with a projected adoption hearing sometime in September of 2021. And I did put this slide in just to give you an idea of where these 2 map amendments, how close they are in proximity. Of course, one is west of North Park Road and one is east of North Park Road. But as the crow flies, you can see they're fairly close to each other. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. All right. Are there any questions or comments on this item from the planning commissioners? I'm not seeing any hands or faces popping up online or any lights popping on in here, so I will thank you for the presentation, Mr. Hudson, and we will move on to PC CPA 21-03.
Thank you again, Chairman. Again, Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. Where the first 2 plan amendments were map amendments, this is a text amendment that has been initiated by the City of Plant City. And what they've asked us to help them with is they would like a new plan category, residential 16. The city is becoming more complex, and as time progresses and their population grows, there's a feeling of the need to have more refined plan categories to allow them to ultimately offer a development pattern that meets the vision for their community. We've developed plan categories for them in the past, like commercial office and mixed-use gateway. And we also developed, last update, a plan category of residential 9, because there was quite a distance or density change between the land use categories that they had in their plan at the time, which was residential 6 to residential 12. So they felt that they needed something that kind of bridged between those 2 densities. And only just recently, almost a decade later, there was an applicant recently that applied for that plan category to develop townhomes. This is a very similar case where currently they have a residential 12 plan category and a residential 20 plan category, and want to bridge that distance and offer something that's in between. And just for an example, Plant City currently has about half as many plan categories to choose from as the city of Tampa. But as I noted, as the community grows, there's a need to develop new plan categories from time to time. I already mentioned this is publicly initiated by the city. This will affect their future land use element, particularly the sections dealing with plan categories and implementation, and also the section dealing with definitions. So I've already noted that this is to span the distance between the densities allowed for residential 12 and residential 20, offering 16 dwelling units per acre. There's also some current changes that are being done that deal with density bonuses and locational criteria, which are very much based on what is allowed also in R12 and R20 to be consistent between the two. And in this case, it will allow a 0.35 floor area ratio for any type of non-residential developments that meet that locational criteria, the same as what is done for R12 and R20. This is on the same timeline as the previous plan amendment. Again, coming to the Planning Commission on June 15th, the Planning Board on June 23rd in the morning, City Commission transmittal hearing on July 26th, and a projected adoption hearing in September 2021. And with that, Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any lights in the room. Not seeing any faces popping up or hands on the WebEx. I'll check one. Thank you for that one, Mr. Hudson. And we will move on to the next item, TTCPA 21-01. Again, Mr. Hudson.
This is, of course, for Temple Terrace, TTCPA 21-01. This is the first plan amendment we processed for the city of Temple Terrace in a couple cycles. And this shows you the location of this plan amendment. It's located near the confluence of Temple Terrace Highway and Harney Road. And just by way of a little bit of background, that this was privately initiated. It's a regular scale plan amendment as some of the previous ones I spoke of in Plant City, coming in at about 53 acres. It's going from Hillsborough County Community Mixed Use 12 and a request in Temple Terrace Community Mixed Use 12. Now, those are very similar plan categories, and what the applicant is trying to accomplish is the city of Temple Terrace is in a better position to offer this site utilities, and therefore they're requesting a voluntary annexation in this land use to develop that site with basically the same entitlements that is allowed today in the county. So this shows you the land use map as it stands today with the black dashed line surrounding the site. To the east, west, and south are also land use plan categories of community unit mixed 12, and to the north is Temple Terrace urban mixed use 20. And if I go to the next slide, you don't see a lot of change because the colors assigned for those two plan categories, which are the community mixed use 12, are the same both in unincorporated county and in Temple Terrace. So as you can see from how we're analyzing this, the entitlements do not change from one jurisdiction to the other. They come in at about 637 dwelling units, or about 1.1 million square feet of non-residential uses. I will say that the media has already reported that half the site is envisioned by the applicant to offer a site for 150,000 square feet building that will be utilized by the Veterans Administration for a new medical facility. However, we are analyzing it, and you'll see in the report next month based on these maximum build-outs. With that, we bringing this the same evening as the Plant City Plan amendments to June 15th, which is that Tuesday early evening. We are still working with Temple Terrace staff to identify the hearing dates for Temple Terrace City Council, both for their transmittal hearing and for their adoption hearing. However, that will be available for you to know, and also for us to announce at our public hearing on June 15th. And with that, Chairman, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. All right. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any in the room. Not seeing much action online. We will thank you for the presentation, Mr. Hudson, and we will move on to our next item. C, non-discrimination plan, purpose, update, and process, and historical background. The presenter is Joshua Barber.
Thank you, Chair Joseph. Josh Barber, MPO staff. I also have Dana Lazarus with me today, and she'll be rolling right into her presentation after mine. So items 4 and 5 on your agenda. And let me just share my screen real quick. Give me a moment. Is it full screen for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everybody. Josh Barber, MPO staff. I'm here to provide an update on the 2021 Title VI Non-Discrimination and Equity Plan. I want to provide a little bit of a project background. The Hillsborough MPO is required by federal civil rights legislation to adopt a Title Non-Discrimination Plan. The last one was adopted by the MPO board in March of 2018, and its crux is it demonstrates our compliance with major federal civil rights legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as executive orders such as the one on environmental justice and limited English proficiency. Best practice is to update the plan every 3 years, which puts our update for this year. The plan also advances equitable processes, programs, and policies for the entire MPO. Yes. And then currently, as you can see, the 2018 plan covers these federally mandated areas, such as identifying and mapping our underserved communities and where they're located. The plan looks at how we engage those communities in our work, how we evaluate the outcomes of our plans in those neighborhoods. It looks at how we integrated Title VI and non-discrimination principles into our program areas, such as the Long-Range Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program. It also complies with federal law in having a complaint process and a procedure and a staff liaison for Title VI. So if any member of the public feels they have been discriminated against, they have a redress through the agency. And so with the recent protests around racial injustice and the MPO support of a resolution on racial equity, we will be expanding the plan this year to include the Hillsborough City County Planning Commission. And this is really to advance equitable outcomes for Plan Hillsborough as a whole, but also to ensure that the Planning Commission is continuing to meet federal regulations and requirements passed down through federal funding. And so, according to federal law, agencies that receive federal funds are required to ensure non-discrimination in the provision of all agency activities. This includes race, ethnicity, color, and national origin, which comes out of Title VI. Income, ability, sex, gender, sexual orientation, as well as age. English proficiency comes out of the executive order on such, as well as family status and religion. And so just a brief overview of kind of some of the work we've been doing, what you can expect to see in the plan. We took the task of defining equity for the agency. Afterwards, we looked at the history of inequity in planning policy in Hillsborough County specifically, which we'll discuss in a bit. We looked at identifying communities of concern or underserved communities. This is a requirement under federal law, and we'll talk about that a bit more. We did a self-evaluation of existing equity work for both the Planning Commission and the MPO. So how are, like I said, the principles and goals of Title VI and environmental justice incorporated into our planning processes? We conducted a robust public engagement process, which Dana will speak to. And then ultimately, we'll be providing a set of recommendations for both Plan Hillsborough as an agency, as well as specific recommendations for the processes of the Planning Commission and the TPO as well. And so I want to go a bit into how planning got us here. I want to talk a bit about the report. You'll see will have an overview of local, state, national law and politics to help frame the work. But it'll dive into public and private housing, comprehensive planning, zoning, urban renewal, and highway construction. And this is really a major component of our equity planning work this year. A component, one of the major items in our framework for equity is acknowledgement and recognition of both historical inequity and injustice, and how that relates to contemporary inequity and injustice. And so from the local level to the federal level, our country really has fundamentally failed to address the legacy of racism. And while many of us know the history of urban renewal, of highway construction, it's less likely that we know specifically how those policies that came down from the federal level manifested themselves in Hillsborough County. So we felt it was important for us as a staff and as a government agency to document and acknowledge those specific and intentional ways that these policies harm Black communities and other communities of color, and relate those to our current challenges and have a vision for overcoming those. So we're going to dive a little bit into some history here now. A bit of a disclaimer and a content warning. There are quotes and images from historical documents that uses language that is not up to today's standards. They're provided so that we are all clear about what these policies were and what their specific intent was. The first thing I want to talk about is housing broadly, and specifically we're going to start with deed restrictions. Deed restrictions, specifically racially restrictive covenants, became an important instrument for enforcing racial segregation in the early 20th century, especially after race-based zoning was outlawed in 1917. These are clauses in the deed of a property that essentially states that these properties can never be sold, leased to, rented to, or anyone who is Black. And often it included other racial and ethnic minorities. Hillsborough County, as staff, we went through the Hillsborough County Clerk of the Court's office, went through those old 35mm rolls and identified a host of racially restrictive covenants for properties in the county. The one on the left is for an area in what is now North Hyde Park. The one on the right is for a plat of land in East Suwannee Heights subdivision. We've also found references to deed restrictions in Ruskin, in other parts of Seminole Heights, on Davis Islands. And we didn't get through all of them, but there are much more. The next area is the area of mortgage lending in the Homeowners Loan Corporation. The Homeowners Loan Corporation was established as part of the Roosevelt administration's New Deal in 1933, and it marked a change in the administration of mortgages and home loans nationwide. They provided for long-term, low-interest loans that the federal government guaranteed. And to do this, this Homeowners Loan Corporation created a uniform appraisal system, which these residential security maps came out of to the right. These were done nationwide. The appraisal standards include relatively standard characteristics we would see now, such as the age of the housing stock, how it was constructed, the rate of foreclosures, stuff like that. But also they graded neighborhoods based on the race and class of the people living there. So you can see for Ybor City, Palmetto Beach, and West Tampa, which was a red line neighborhood or the least desirable or bad for mortgage lending. You can see the quote provided up here. Palmacia, Moody Heights, Virginia Park, that was a blue line neighborhood. Same thing with these next two. These were green line neighborhoods. And you can see the differences in how the appraisers graded an area based on the type of people who lived there, the race and class of people who lived there. And these policies really were what shaped who was able to get a mortgage and where they were able to get a mortgage and at what interest rate that mortgage was lended ultimately. Diving into public housing, the first major involvement in constructing housing for civilians came during World War I, but it wasn't until the 1937 Housing Act that the federal government began becoming heavily involved in providing public housing. This act required local governments to establish their own housing agencies that could build housing projects with federal grants and loans, which led to the creation of the Tampa Housing Authority in October of the same year. And the big takeaway is that public housing in Hillsborough County, as well as the rest of the United States, was used to create and reinforce racial and ethnic segregation, primarily through displacing Black residents in certain areas and concentrating Black residents in other areas. For example, North Boulevard Homes was the first public housing complex constructed in Hillsborough County with federal dollars. This was a Black-only housing complex, and you'll see how the development of this public housing project guided the growth and development of the city and shaped the policies of decision makers moving forward. Similarly, the construction of Robles Park Village is a relevant conversation. Chiefly, the historic Robles Park area was a very old Black neighborhood at the time. Robles Park Village was constructed on top of that neighborhood. It displaced those Black residents, and it was a white-only public housing complex when it was constructed in 1953. And this is especially important as we continue to discuss Black cemeteries that have been destroyed through our community, especially Zion Cemetery, and the relationship between the destruction of that area with historical racism as well. Diving a bit into comprehensive planning and zoning, I don't want to give you all a history lesson on comp planning. Of course, from 1910 to 1917, several major US cities enacted zoning laws which restricted neighborhoods on the basis of race. Baltimore is a great example, and it was the first one to enact a racial zoning ordinance in 1910, which prohibited Black people from buying homes on blocks where whites were a majority and vice versa. While this was ultimately outlawed in 1917 under the Supreme Court, many jurisdictions adopted policies and mechanisms that, while not explicitly race-based, were nonetheless used to enforce racial and economic segregation and create it, and otherwise place harmful uses near racialized and ethnic communities. This includes stuff such as minimum lot sizes, bans and restrictions on multifamily housing in white and upper class neighborhoods, the disparate enforcement of new building codes and standards, and the citing of industrial uses near racialized and ethnic communities. So we'll go a little bit into some of the county's first comprehensive and zoning plans. The first major plan adopted for any jurisdiction in the county was the City of Tampa's Major Street Plan in 1941. This one goes through major demographics of the neighborhoods. It notes that Tampa's really unique in that over 29% of Tampa's population is of Latin descent. It identifies many Black neighborhoods across the city. You can see here Robles Park identified in the top, which was discussed earlier. That was ultimately destroyed by the construction of Robles Park Village. And you can also see the first inklings of what would become an explicit policy on behalf of the city in pushing Black people towards the area around North Boulevard Homes in West Tampa. This also became the first proposed routing of Interstate 275 along Central Avenue, and the first policy that you see from the city where they use the interstate highway construction as an explicit means of clearing up what they call blighted or slum areas. This one in particular being the scrub north of Cass Street. And this also was the first plan that would cite the Southern Crosstown Expressway as well. And of course we know about Dobyville and what the construction of that would do to that neighborhood. Moving forward, the City of Tampa adopted a zoning plan in 1942. This is where you see the continued push around the relationship between single-family housing and upper-class development and multifamily housing and what is called lower-class development. This first quote provided here at the top really highlights this in relationship to the Hyde Park neighborhood. And this language of how they equivocate multifamily with lower-class neighborhood is important as we move forward. And so this would be the map on the right, the first zoning map for the city of Tampa. And while there are no racial, ethnic, or class-based justifications cited for the zoning map in the plan, which was illegal at this time, so it would make sense, they do cite existing land use and neighborhood character as the primary driving forces behind their land use decisions here. And you don't need to go far to figure out what the city likely meant by neighborhood character, perhaps to the 1933 Homeowners Loan Corporation residential security maps might be a good start. And if we examine this map a bit further, you can easily see that the historically Black neighborhoods identified in the map before are primarily zoned as multifamily. This includes East Tampa, West Tampa, which were zoned R4, which was the highest multifamily category, as well as portions of Hyde Park, which were zoned R3. And then you see historically white upper-class neighborhoods zoned single-family, R1, R2. And you also see the zoning of industrial uses immediately adjacent to some historically Black neighborhoods, such as over here in West Tampa and Dobyville with the vertical lines. Another major section of this report is entitled The Report of Extent and Nature of and Trend of Blighted Areas. And you can see some quotes provided here, which equivocate slum areas with Black neighborhoods and call for the outright destruction of those neighborhoods and moving those residents to other parts of Tampa. So a very explicit policy of segregation and displacement on part of the city in their 1942 zoning plan. The 1945 Tampa Comprehensive Plan continues this pattern. This covers the areas of parks and recreation, civic centers and improvement, and other capital projects. You can see the language used to describe the scrub here, really building on and setting the stage for the urban renewal and destruction of the neighborhood with the interstate highway system that would come here soon. And, you know, the city of Tampa was not the only one in Hillsborough County to do this. The city of Plant City similarly did a comprehensive plan in 1956. The map on the left shows predominant non-white areas in the city on the south side of the railroad tracks. And then you see other areas where segregation and segregationist policies are very intentional and explicit. On the topic of Parks and Rec, you can see that the city acknowledges that no public facilities had been built for Black people at the time in the city. The map on the right shows white and non-white schools, where the non-white schools are once again located primarily only on the south side of the tracks. The plan also notes that during 1956, the City Commission created a housing authority to receive federal funding from the Public Housing Administration. They got funded for 3 projects, 2 of which were Black only and 1 was white only. And the 2 Black only housing projects were, of course, sited on the south side of the railroad tracks. And they stated that these projects will eliminate much of the slum and substandard condition now prevailing south of the tracks. And so I want to go a little bit into urban renewal now, and this will kind of show the ways in which the city carried out their segregationist policies throughout the early 1950s and into the 1960s. Urban renewal was funded through the 1949 Federal Housing Act. Essentially, slums and blighted areas were purchased and property was cleared through temporary loans provided by the federal government. Parcels were sold to private developers and public entities to make it more attractive for development. And the cities were really, expected to provide subsidized public housing to mitigate the impacts of displacement taking place. We see that with the construction of Progress Village after the Scrub Avenue project as well. The urban renewal in Florida was delayed due to a Supreme Court decision, but Tampa began pursuing this funding through special legislation by the Florida legislature in the late 1950s. And there were 4 projects in Hillsborough County: the Scrub, or Maryland Avenue, as it's called in federal documents, the riverfront area, Ybor City, and there was 1 funded in Plant City as well. First one I want to discuss is the Scrub, or Maryland Avenue. This project was funded in 1962 and included 60 acres with 376 families. And it was bounded by, if you have a good mental map, Scott Street on the north, Nebraska Avenue on the east, Cass Street on the south, and Central Avenue on the west. I don't need to go into how long it had been identified by the city for redevelopment or the language that was used to describe the area that was provided before. The big thing here is that by the time demolition started in this project, no housing developer had been selected to replace the demolished units. It wasn't until 1966, nearly 4 years later, that a builder was designated to construct low-income housing, and those would become Tampa Park Apartments, and that land was ultimately donated by the city to the private developer with no cost. And the Tampa branch of the NAACP at the time raised significant concerns about this project throughout its life. The NAACP criticized the city's desire to reestablish this neighborhood as Black only, which flew in the face of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision, which had ended the separate but equal doctrine for public facilities. But you see the city's continued desire to enforce that segregationist policy, even through urban renewal. The NAACP also criticized the lack of community representation on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Urban Renewal Agency, which was white only. And these complaints were ultimately raised to the level of the federal government. In a letter, Robert Saunders wrote to another field manager of the NAACP. He says that Black people in Tampa will be relegated to a continuous pattern of racially segregated housing for the next 50 to 100 years if this program were to continue as it was then continuing. That's just an overview of the project. The riverfront area, this is located in the area formerly known as Roberts City. This project was funded in 1963. There's 2 maps shown on the right. The one on the top is the before map, and the one at the bottom is after the urban renewal took place. A 1961 survey showed 10 white families in the study area, 670 Black families, 176 businesses, and 6 institutions. This land was sold to both public and private entities. 25 acres was sold to the University of Tampa for the construction of their expansion of their campus, but that was ultimately resold to another private party without any construction taking place. The city of Tampa purchased several acres that were used to construct Curtis Hickson Hall, as well as the John F. Germany Library. And then other land was sold off to private entities for offices, hotels, and other commercial uses, as well as, and you can see to the map at the bottom, the construction of Interstate 4 as well. And while the city made assurances that subsidized public housing would be provided on the site, it took a long time for this to happen. It wasn't until the early 1970s that Presbyterian Village was constructed, as well as Oakhurst Square, which was constructed to mitigate the displacement that occurred. Not that those residents weren't already long gone by the time that was constructed. And I'll dive a little bit into highway construction now. As we talked about, the city had a policy in the 1941 plan to use the construction of the interstate highway system to clear what they deemed slums or blighted neighborhoods. And the 1956 Federal Aid Highway Act really provided the funding for them to do this. Tampa was, of course, Hillsborough County situated at the intersection of two designated interstate highways, what would become Interstate 4 and Interstate 275. In addition, the Southern Crosstown Expressway was also constructed in the early 1970s. There's a quote provided here from an article out of Vanderbilt Law Review, which is incredibly pertinent. And really it speaks to the exact policies that the city and the county would carry out, largely resulting in significant displacement of Black and Latino residents in West Tampa, the Scrub, and Ybor City, as well as Dobyville with the construction of the Southern Crosstown Expressway. And so there are some images provided here from the city's 1957 Master Highway Transportation Plan. This is from Armenia Avenue on the left to North Boulevard on the right. You can see North Boulevard homes right here. This is the downtown interchange. You can see the Scrub neighborhood here, Central Park Village, and also Robert City over here, the urban renewal site, and here as well. And then going through Ybor City from Nebraska to 21st Street as well are some aerials. And so by the end of the 1960s, we have the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which ended the doctrine of separate but equal and was carried out rather excruciatingly throughout the South. You have the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the enactment of Title VI of that act, and then the follow-up, the 1968 Civil Rights Act as well, which included what we call the Fair Housing Act. Nonetheless, by the time we get to this era, the city's policies, city and county policies, the urban renewal projects, the construction of the interstate highway system, result in the destruction of major Black and Latin neighborhoods and the associated cultural and social erasure that occurred with those, especially with Dobyville, Robert City, the Scrub, and Ybor. You see further segregated neighborhoods supported by this displacement of residents out of certain areas and the intentional segregation in other areas, especially East Tampa, the area around North Boulevard, and West Tampa, and the construction of Progress Village, which was, to note, never supported by the NAACP, as the developer never made assurances that it would be an integrated community. You see the exclusion of Black people from the housing market and wealth generation. As we know, housing is the largest form of intergenerational wealth transfer in this country, and is an essential component of wealth today. And you see the exclusion of Black people from political office and planning efforts. There's a section included in our history report which goes through some of the politics at the time, which are worth noting. And really this was done out of white supremacy at the end of the day, and the city sought for economic development in these neighborhoods and the construction of the highway, ultimately. And there are probably, there are a lot of other outcomes we could discuss and a lot of other impacts, but I would like to transition now more into the modern day. And I want to talk about where our most underserved communities live today and how we're meeting federal requirements for mapping. We use two methods for our 2021 plan update, dot density and threshold, and we'll go over those a little bit more here in a second. Our threshold maps, the best way to understand these is we took all the block groups in Hillsborough County. We looked at what the percentage of a given demographic was in those block groups, ordered them from highest to lowest, and then we took the top 20%, the top fifth. So the very high is the top fifth, the high is the next top fifth. The map on the right shows our racial minority population. And the map on the right shows low income. And it's fascinating in that many of the historical legacies continue to show up in our contemporary maps. This neighborhood down here off of State Road 60 near 39 is the community of Bealsville, which was settled by formerly enslaved people under the Southern Homestead Act shortly after the Civil War. Still a historically Black neighborhood today. You see the south side of the railroad tracks in Plant City continue to show up, as well as the areas of West Tampa and East Tampa. And then to help build upon our analysis of the county and better understand our community needs, we did a series of intersection maps showing where different groups line up together. So the map on the right shows the overlap with minority and low-income populations, and the map on the right shows the overlap of people with a disability and low-income households. And then our next section of maps are dot density maps. So the good thing about the threshold maps is it shows where concentrations of individual groups are, and it's sensitive to concentrations in rural areas. Of course, the drawback of that is it doesn't reflect the actual density of the county in a way. And so these dot density maps are an attempt to mitigate that concern, to provide a more holistic understanding of where people live in Hillsborough County. The map on the right is dot density by racial and ethnic groups, where one dot is 10 people. White people are shown in blue, Black people are shown in green, Asian people are shown in red, and in orange is Hispanic folks. And the map on the right shows low-income households, where one dot is equal to 4 households. And so with that, I would like to pass it off to Dana to talk about our community engagement process, and then we'd be happy to take questions after that.
Hello. I'm Dana Lazarus, and I took point on the this non-discrimination plan updates community outreach process. So, and thank you, Josh, for doing the slides. I'm going to be talking about the methods that we used to get feedback, particularly from underserved members of our county. So the people that lived in those parts of the map that Josh showed you that are low income, communities of color, people with disabilities, and things like that. Next slide, please. So first of all, this is, I believe, the first time that we're doing a public engagement process for a non-discrimination plan update. We collected qualitative data through this process to get a deeper understanding of what people's needs and challenges are. Community leadership and engagement is, in fact, one of our components of equity. When we set out to define what does equity mean for the Planning Commission and Plan Hillsborough as a whole, we identified that increasing participation and engagement of traditionally underserved people is a major component. So that's why we set out to do this. And functionally, we wanted to use this opportunity to build relationships for long-term partnership with these people in the community who have traditionally been unheard and left out of the engagement process. Exclusion isn't always active. A lot of times it is passive. So we wanted to be cognizant of that. And we also wanted to get some feedback from folks that is going into the recommendations that we're also including in this non-discrimination plan update. That there are going to be recommendations for planning, policy, and process changes that will hopefully move us closer to an equitable Hillsborough County. Next slide, please. So we designed a program that has 3 phases. There was an early engagement phase to really get an inventory of our contacts and people in the county that we wanted to ensure to engage. We developed a brand for the initiative, our Planning for Equity initiative. So we, I'm just changing my screen. So you can see right there the Planning for Equity logo to help us, become more recognizable in the community. And we have a webpage as well where people can sign up who are interested in engaging with us on our equity work. We also designed a phase for after the active engagement piece, which again is what I'm going to go over next, where we actually collected information from the community for this specific plan update. But we developed a 3rd engagement phase, which is our ongoing engagement phase, to help build trusting relationships by not just going in and asking people to give us their feedback and then disappearing so they never know what happened with it. But again, we want to build these relationships for long-term partnerships. We want to bring the plan back to the people that helped us, and all the people that participated in the process, so that they know how their feedback was used, so they can actually see those policies that we are recommending. Next slide. So the first tactic that we used was a survey. So just a little more background. For the active engagement phase, we designed 4 strategies that were designed for different purposes to reach different audiences, and they all kind of built off one another. So the survey was kind of our quantity piece, where we wanted to just reach as many people in the county as possible. And the data that we collected in the survey, most of it was quantitative, so we could do a quick quantitative analysis of their responses. So, for example, one of the big questions on the survey was to rate your access to different community elements. So we're able to look at the demographic information they provided. So like people with disabilities, we were able to look at, the zip code that they provided and how they rated their access to things like jobs, grocery stores, parks, schools, things like that. And so we got a good spread. We ended up collecting a total of 605 people filled out the survey, but 456 people completed the survey to completion and provided really valuable information. Next slide. The survey was also a tool for our field outreach. So the field outreach was a really important piece of this process. We went out into these underserved communities. So, first we looked at the map that shows the intersection of low income and people of color. We also looked at some of the older maps and saw the intersection of people with disabilities and some other characteristics of underserved populations to identify these priority locations around the county. Then a team of 3, myself, a member that we hired from the community, Marco there, and our intern Fatima, who speaks fluent Spanish. We went out into the field 3 days a week for 5 hours a day for 7 weeks. And we stood at these hot spots and we used the survey to collect information from people. So we conducted the survey verbally with those members of the community. And it was really effective at ensuring that we spoke to people in those communities by going to them and to make sure that they understood the questions that we were asking. So through this process, we had a goal of collecting a total of 50 surveys over 7 weeks, but we were able to collect over 250. So it was a really successful thing that we did. Next slide, please. And it was really, really important that we do field outreach. This was a really key component, again, of ensuring equity in our engagement process. In order to reach those who are traditionally unheard, you kind of have to meet them where they're at. We were, again, successful. We were able to oversample people of color and low-income people, unemployed people. So we were really able to hear from people that traditionally when you put out a survey, they don't see the survey, and we don't get to hear from them. Also, this was going on during the pandemic. So a lot of people who traditionally wouldn't go to meetings anyways, these meetings were not happening during the pandemic. So we typically, for community engagement, we would engage with like civic association meetings and meetings that were happening, but they weren't happening anyways. So we had to kind of take this non-traditional canvassing approach to engage with people. Next slide. And as I mentioned, this was during the pandemic. We were very safe about it. This is typically a question that we get about how we did this. So we made sure to wear double masks and gloves, and we gave people little bottles of hand sanitizer that they were very grateful for, especially people that were just getting on the bus. So we were able to even do this process during the pandemic. But this was like December through February. So December of last year through February of this year. Next slide. And the third tactic that we use, our third outreach strategy, was again open to everyone in the county. And but this one we wanted to dig a little deeper to understand some of the patterns that were going to come out of the quantitative data. So we wanted to hear people's stories, to hear from people their personal experiences, again, accessing those community elements I mentioned. So accessing jobs, accessing housing, quality transportation, things like that. So it really provides kind of the heart to the head piece, the what's really going on, to kind of like the logic piece of the data that we can look at through the census and things like that. And we got some really fantastic responses. A lot of community leaders and organizers came to the storytelling forum, and we got some great qualitative data through that. Next slide. And then our last strategy was we did a series of focus groups. And so again, this was building off of the previous methods. We identified people in those underserved communities who responded to the survey. We asked, would you like to give us more information on your experiences? And people that said yes, we got in contact with them and recruited them to a focus group. So we had 5 demographic-based focus groups so that we could dig deeper into the needs and challenges of these kind of big 5 protected demographics. Black / African American people and Latinx / Hispanic people make up the biggest minority groups in Hillsborough County. People with disabilities are protected by the ADA, and low income people are also a protected demographic. And then LGBTQ people, we tend to not have a lot of data on them. So we also did a focus group with those folks. And again, similar to the storytelling forum, we wanted to get people's stories and some good qualitative data to dig deeper into the trends that were emerging from the quantitative part. Next slide, please. So all of those outreach strategies, we have 150 pages of raw data that I just recently finished doing data analysis on to identify themes around the challenges that people face in accessing housing, jobs, again, different community elements, accessing transportation, and identifying. So we're using the results of that engagement phase to guide the recommendations that we are coming up with for our non-discrimination plan. And so that's kind of the next step that we're working on now. Our recommendations will be agency-wide, and they will hit on all different aspects of our work. So, you know, we'll look at how we do community outreach agency-wide, and, you know, even down to like our hiring process and the trainings that we offer to new hires, cultural sensitivity trainings, looking at how we can improve representation of underserved demographics in our agency. And for, you know, we'll have some planning commission specific recommendations as well. So looking at different land use and housing policies that we might be able to incorporate into our comprehensive plans that help move us towards equity, for example. And so we're exploring that now and look forward to bringing those recommendations to you. Next slide. So speaking of the next steps, we are going to have our draft non-discrimination plan completed by early June. We're going to do a final community feedback meeting on June 29th, where we take the recommendations that we come up with back to the community, the people who participated in those steps, and see what they have to say, what feedback they have on what we came up with. And we will have our final draft to bring to you guys on August 9th. And we'll, again, this is both Planning Commission and TPO. So then we'll be bringing it to the TPO on August 11th for approval as well. Thank you so much. And I think Josh and I can take some questions.
Thank you. All right. Great presentation. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners on this one? Commissioner Linkus, yes. Please.
I just want to note that both Joshua and Dana are graduates of the USF Urban Planning Program and years ago expressed tremendous interest in these topics. So it's exciting to see that their work is, that their interests are being able to be expressed in this agency, that this agency is taking this initiative seriously. It's such important work that all organizations involved in planning and development have recognized. So I commend the leadership, and you certainly picked the right folks for this. And I can also say that some of our current students are involved in this effort and really excited that this work is being done in the community and that they have a chance to be involved in it.
Thank you, Commissioner Linkus. I see Commissioner Handy on the line with her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much, Dana and Josh. I have a question because I know folks that live in some of these inner city, redevelopment areas in Tampa, and one of the complaints I hear is that what few city parks and green spaces and open spaces there are kind of being seen as opportunities for more affordable housing. And I know that some of those, conversion to permanent zone green spaces are some of the things that have been on our agenda recently. But I think that healthy green spaces and play areas and parks within these inner city communities are just as important as a lot of these other amenities. And I guess my comment or question is that being considered as part of this entire planning process?
Definitely. And one of the themes that is arising from the community engagement process is definitely that access to parks is a priority and is something that people are having challenges with.
Okay.
So we'll be identifying ways to address that.
All right, thank you. I see Commissioner Dickerson has her hand up also.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, well, first of all, I'm really excited that you guys are looking into this from a transportation lens. I think it's very important. But I also wanted to point out as well that the school district, we're in the works of looking at the greater equity picture. We have an equity staff leader who's very intent on moving forward with this. So we want to reevaluate our attendance boundaries, our choice policies, all of that jazz. So please keep us in the loop because I feel like everyone's kind of looking at this in their own unique silo. However, as we all know, it's all interconnected. Transportation, housing, the same neighborhoods that you have on your screen as those red line neighborhoods are a lot. Oh my gosh, shocker, where our F schools are. So there are a lot of things that we have to look at collectively. So I would definitely like to partner with you all in kind of joining our efforts where we can and sharing data where we can. I think that's very important. So bravo, and I'm excited and looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dickerson. I've been in contact with a member of the school district staff, and we've talked a little bit about it. Commissioner Kemp at the last TPO meeting talked about hosting an intergovernmental workshop to discuss the history with the cities and the county and the school district. There is a bit of information coming out about the relationship between racism and schools in Hillsborough County and Tampa specifically, and the process of integration in the 1960s and how that went. So, we've been talking and looking forward to working together more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kress, yes.
This is the second time that I've seen this presentation, and it's no less kind of shocking how blatant the whole thing is. I mean, I think we're all kind of aware, but it's good to be reminded of this. And I That was the first time I saw the specific recommendations for the different groups that make up Plan Hillsborough, and I thought they looked pretty reasonable, so I look forward to kind of hearing if we'll be implementing those.
Yeah, and I should just add that those are just the start of the recommendations, just a couple of examples. So we're continuing to flesh those out as a staff, and we'll have the full report to you in August.
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, usually when I've seen anything similar to that, it's been a little not full. There's always something missing, and this was very, very informative all the way through. It was really awesome to just get educated in that way with it all.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Marino.
Thank you. Thank you. I think my question might be, well, I don't know if it's for Joshua or Dana, whichever one can ask this. It's very specific, but it's for a reason. So the neighborhood that I live in Port Tampa City, and I guess this is, I don't know what number slide it is, but the urban renewal slide has an inset for Port Tampa City that's bordered by Montana and Manhattan Avenue. Montana Street doesn't exist. Montana Street's actually a ditch. And that neighborhood, there's far more history of that neighborhood than I can go into right now. But, as you're going through the presentation, the thing that has stood out to me about Port Tampa specifically, also Lincoln Gardens, Carver City neighborhood, which is in the West Shore district, but was founded by African-American GIs coming back from World War II. But there was, at one point, there was a jail there. There is a parking lot for garbage trucks there, type of stuff you do not expect in a neighborhood, but still exists. Are you able to, or is it possible, or is it even feasible to go through, especially the red line neighborhoods, and maybe find the infrastructure that dates to this time period and use that to prioritize future improvements? I think it'd be hard to expect, removing a lot of roads, but that we have neighborhoods with 20-foot deep drainage ditches, like in Lincoln Gardens, Carver City. That seems like a project, for example, that should not have, you would not expect in any other neighborhood. So as you were going through this, were you able to identify other instances where the infrastructure of that time period was almost degraded on purpose? Because at that point in time of discrimination, there, quote unquote, those neighborhoods were considered to be of second-class citizens because people did not have full civil rights. Is there a way, or have other communities been able to prioritize projects in modern times to sort of rectify the problems that were created when they put these substandard infrastructure in to these red line neighborhoods?
Thank you, Commissioner Marino. I'll take a crack at that if Dana's all right with it.
I have something to add, but you go ahead.
There's a lot to unpack, I think. I think someone else is not muted also.
Somebody's gotten 9 weeks of it, and I can
So, Commissioner, to speak to your thing, yeah, there have been several, we have identified areas where what you described has definitely occurred. The first one that comes to mind for me is Progress Village and the siting of the phosphate mine and gypsum stack, less than 3 or 4 miles from the location of that community. And there was significant pushback by the community at the time to not have that environmental hazard near them. And I think what you really speak to is issues of environmental justice, which, modern standards, of course, require us to examine those issues. but at the time it was not a requirement. And so something we've been kind of kicking around on the transportation planning side is, outside of the highway envelope, what roadways were widened and where, and to what extent were modern environmental justice concerns, such as cultural, historical, and community impacts considered in those, and what does a process look like to mitigate those ongoing impacts in those communities, and how do we work with them to identify those needs? And so I think something very similar can and should be undertaken in regards to issues of land use and the environment on the Planning Commission side and how that relates to modern day environmental justice, because certainly areas such as Port Tampa City and Carver City and Lincoln Gardens do continue to experience the impacts from that legacy of racism there. I think I kind of covered what I wanted to say. Dana, do you have something you want to add?
I feel like you answered that pretty well. I was going to also mention environmental justice and how, again, like through our outreach process, I mean, that was one way that we are looking at identifying priority areas and understanding those current conditions that we're dealing with. And a lot of people they know what's going on, and whether or not it's a historical impact, they know that, there's more industry and pollutants near where they live than in other places. And so that was another way that we're kind of getting qualitative data around those types of things. And I really like the idea of also doing a more detailed inventory. So thank you for bringing that idea to us.
And just to add on, there's some great national research coming out and some webinars being conducted in coordination with the EPA at the federal level on the connection between historical redlining and modern day inequitable outcomes. In particular, they talk about green space and impervious pavement, and like I said, designing a program to engage those communities that are historically impacted and working to mitigate those. Yeah, that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to echo Commissioner Kress's comments too. You presented this to the Local Roadways Committee, and I think the comment I made at the time is that it's kind of spooky that you look at some of the stuff and you realize, oh, these are the same neighborhoods, 60, 70 years ago, similar to the schools issue. And it's
what generation?
Yeah, it's and at least I don't want to speak for my neighborhood in particular, but one of the issues down there is that there is additional growth coming, but there's an old abandoned dump in that neighborhood, and that was at one point its own city. So someone who's got a greater sense of Tampa history than I do would understand of how those decisions were made back in the day and how they still influence decisions today. But thank you for the presentation. It was really good.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Yes, Commissioner Bernstein, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners and just say that Commissioner Linkus, whatever you're teaching over at USF is working. That was impressive. The historical data is eye-opening, disturbing to be sure, but also very illuminating in terms of what the path forward is in some ways. And so the discussion I heard, I think, primarily from Ms. Lazarus with regard to the action plans and the outreach are really important. And I don't know if we can ever do enough to educate the public about the important work that this commission and more importantly our staff do, but to the extent that you can continue to generate ideas in that regard. And I think sharing some of that historical information really goes hand in hand with that. You can't have one without the other. We know where we came from. We don't yet know where it's going. But that was a wonderful reminder, I think, of how important our work is, the fact that the work's never done. And, as hard as we may work on this commission among our staff, it doesn't do very, very much good if the members of our community aren't aware of their role in it. So if they don't feel they have a voice, I guess every person in this room has to do our part to make sure that we rectify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. I just wanted to say for my own part, before anyone else jumps in, I guess I'm the bearer of bad news here. I have some some things about this presentation that I didn't quite like. I agree with everything all the commissioners said about the history, the information needing to be presented. Of course, I'm a data person and I read a lot, so I look at details towards things. And as I'm looking at this presentation, the first thing that I notice is, and you gave a disclaimer at the opening, there's a lot of incendiary language in it. I've spoken about this before, and I think that in bringing people together, we have to be clear about what happened in the past, but we also have to be very clear about the language we use in moving forward to get people back together. And I think that some of the language in here could be presented a little bit better, but I'll move quickly past that. A major problem I had with the presentation is there's a constant flip-flop between the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County. I'm not understanding whether the issue is really started at the city of Tampa or whether it came from Hillsborough County, because the data and the mapping just shifts without any sort of storyline set to it. So one minute we're talking about 275 along Central Avenue in Tampa, the next minute we're talking about intersectionality at the county. You know, so the back and forth to me was a little unsettling because it made me feel that there was some disingenuity in the data that's being presented, right? If we're talking about the city of Tampa, we should be talking about the city of Tampa. If we're talking about the county, we should be talking about the county. We can compare the two because there's information to be found there too, but this just seems kind of like a hodgepodge to me. What else as I go through? I got a bunch of stuff marked up in here. The groups that we talk about bringing together for the focus grouping, I noticed that we talk about low income, and as soon as we talk about low income, we talk about people of color. There's a lot of low income people here who aren't of color, who can't afford a house. So one of the commissioners brought up affordability in housing. I think that should have been a big part of this discussion, especially what we have going on right now with the affordable housing thing going through the Board of County Commissioners. It's a perfect opportunity to sort of talk about how it hasn't been done well in the past, how it could be done well in the future. Instead, we keep kind of harping on this separation, black versus white, you know what I mean? And I don't think that's helpful. So I would like to see more people involved in those different focus groups, which is a lot of work, right? I get that, but I think we could have went further in a lot of the things that we're doing instead of just being so focused on black and white. The data, we were talking about using people's perceptions of accessibility as quantitative data. I believe perception is qualitative, not quantitative, unless we're talking about the number of stories we're counting. And I noticed that there was sort of a jostlation hodgepodge with quantitative, what's qualitative also. The reason why I think it's important that we make that distinction is because we're making recommendations based on this. So if we're tying this back to actual factual data and we're calling it quantitative data, it had better be quantitative and add up. If it's qualitative, then same goes for that. And to me, the presentation at this point doesn't seem really clear right there. It just keeps mixing up the two terms and just throwing out a bunch of other new terms. Another group that I wanted to mention besides affordable housing, as I look at Commissioner Rodriguez, veterans. I didn't see anything here about veterans. And I know we give credence because the base is here. We automatically say, hey, we got McDill here, the veterans, da-da-da. They're just a talking point. I think this is an opportunity, right? They're not the focus. I'm not saying shift focus away from these people. I'm saying add, okay, these people into the focus. And I think this is a real opportunity to do that was missed here. In saying all this, I want to end by saying I think the presentation was great. I think everything, Josh, that you and Dana have done so far is great. Please don't take this as me criticizing you and saying stop what you're doing. What I want to see is more, and that tends to be my downfall. You give me a little bit and I say, oh, well, that's interesting. And I'm like, okay, well, you could have went so much further. And, you know, I think there's that opportunity to do that here. But again, we have to be careful because this is a very touchy subject. So those were the only points that I wanted to make in general.
Thank you, Commissioner. If you have any guidance on the use of language, I'd be happy to adjust accordingly. I think, you know, I'm of course hesitant to present and read some of these statements out loud, so I try to navigate it as best as I can and in a sensitive manner. I'm definitely open to guidance suggestions.
Yeah, I'm gonna get with Ms. Zornita sometime when I'm not on the air and try and get together a meeting of all of us to just chat and see what's going on with the progress of it and everything like that. So I'll definitely speak to you all more one-to-one and give you a bit more, what I'm really feeling and what I think can move and stuff like that. So thank you.
Sir.
Any more comments from the commissioners? No lights in the room. No hands online. We will move on to our next item, which is thank you for the presentation, Josh and Dana. And we move on to our next item, which is the Executive Director's Report. Melissa Zornita.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. I emailed out on Friday my report. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight. In Josh and Dana's presentation, you might have noticed that they went back and forth between calling it the MPO and the TPO. And that's because I think we're all getting used to the fact that the MPO at their last meeting voted to change their name to the Transportation Planning Organization. So that became effective last week, and we'll probably all take a little bit of time to adjust and use the new acronym. A couple of other things that have come up in the last month that you all should be aware of. We've gotten a report on the legislative session from our legislative liaison, Diane Sauls. I'll be emailing that out. One piece of legislation of note is that there was legislation that was adopted that requires the implementation of a property rights element in the comprehensive plan. I think they use the term element a little differently than we do because it specifically lays out about 3 or 4 points that need to be included in the comprehensive plan, which wouldn't constitute an element like we think of the future land use element. But it is something that Diane has indicated she believes the governor will be signing. So that's something that we will be working towards including in a future cycle of amendments. The reason that's important is that the legislation says that it has to be adopted before any amendment initiated after July 1st can be adopted. So if we don't move forward with this text amendment, we would start holding up other amendments that are coming along in future cycles. We don't want to do that. So we're being proactive and starting work on that. Mark Hudson's going to be our point person on that project and working with the different attorneys to make sure we're in compliance. And many of you may have read in the paper about the city of Tampa's trying to slow down the multifamily development in certain land use categories. They've had numerous discussions, much of it stemming from a lot of the growth that's occurring south of Gandy Boulevard. The city of Tampa has initiated a plan amendment based on what city's council's action has been to look at removing the ability for the floor area ratio to be utilized for multifamily development in the urban mixed use, community mixed use, and community commercial land use categories. So that's something that we are working with the city on. There's a lot of, the initial amendment was submitted to us as a citywide amendment. Even as late as Thursday, City Council was having discussions about whether or not they should narrow that focus. So we are having a stakeholder meeting on May 25th, a virtual stakeholder meeting to get input on that and work with the city staff on what is the appropriate way to, we understand their intent to want to try to slow some of the multifamily development that is not mixed use, but yet there are many of the areas where these planned categories lie that are in West Shore, in Ybor, in periphery of downtown that might continue to be appropriate to have some of this development, and important to have some of this development in terms of accommodating future population growth. So that's something that is on our plates coming forward to you all the public hearing would, at this point, be scheduled for August with you all. But that's something that we're looking at as we get input from the stakeholders, whether we're going to need additional time in that review process. Also last week, the Board of County Commissioners had requested an agenda item be brought related to privately initiated text amendments to the comprehensive plan. This is something that happens about on average, about one a year. We get a private applicant wanting to change the text of the comprehensive plan. And the Board of County Commissioners initially asked whether or not they even needed to entertain privately initiated text amendments. We did some research of how other places handle it. Most local governments do allow for privately initiated text amendments. We reported that back to the board. We provided them with some options of how they might procedurally address some of the concerns about the fact that those text amendments often take additional time for review. Sometimes they impact more properties than just one, like a map amendment is targeted to just one piece of property. Sometimes text amendments might have impacts on more than one piece of property. The board liked those options and has asked us to amend the procedures manual for comprehensive plan amendments to incorporate some additional steps in that regard. So that will be coming back to you in future months. Let's see, the next meeting for you all is on a Tuesday. It is June 15th. That's not a typo. And hopefully, if you have not gotten an updated Outlook scheduler, Sharon updated them all at the beginning of the year to reflect the schedule that you all approved based on HTV not being available on all of the second Mondays. But if you haven't gotten those updated schedulers, please let me know and we can get them on your calendars. And there are a couple others coming up going forward that are different from, like, there's, I think October is the first Monday, that type of thing. So there are a couple that are different. So I'll try to alert you of them the month ahead, but please let me know if you're not getting things updated on your calendars. And the last thing I wanted to mention, two things, sorry. We have a couple of workshops coming up. We have a workshop on May 21st, where we're going to be joined by staff of EPC and the Property Appraiser's Office to talk about the environmentally sensitive land credit. We have a workshop on June 9th, where we're going to be talking about our Planning Commission initiated study to look at the affordable housing density bonus in the county and give that consultant some input on that project. You may notice on the agenda packet, some of the agenda templates are changing. You can see it, I think Danny did a couple of the parks amendments in the new template. We've been changing our templates to be ADA compliant so that when they are put up on the website, PDF readers can read them. And some of the things like some of the charts and different things that we had in there, we're making it very complicated for PDF readers. So we will be, over time, you'll be seeing more of the new templates, less of the old ones. Just take us a little while to get out of the old ones. And then, now this is really the last thing. The county has indicated that the building will reopen to in-person services after July 4th. We are anticipating likewise that our office will have in-person services as to whatever degree people come in and ask for planning information in person anymore. But we will have that starting after July 4th. We will be continuing to have staff work part-time remote in a hybrid environment, but we'll be ensuring that we have adequate staffing to support the needs of the public in the building every day. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Bernstein, please.
Melissa, thanks. I just want to make sure for calendar purposes, I thought I heard you say that there was a change to the meeting schedule in June. Was it June 14th? Is that did it get moved, or is there something the next day? I just want to make sure.
The meeting is going to be on the 15th.
It is on the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right, just wanted to clarify for myself, because you breezed through it pretty fast there, the text amendment thing. So the Board of County Commissioners wanted to get rid of the ability for citizens to do text amendments. You guys went and looked around, saw that people do it, brought those recommendations back, and now they want to add more steps into the process.
Yeah, basically what they want to do is mirror the process that they have for privately initiated land development code amendments. In that process, what happens is somebody applies, that application is brought to the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation from staff on whether additional resources, public outreach, or other analysis perhaps is needed on that amendment. The Board of County Commissioners makes a determination about, yes, they want to move forward with the amendment with those additional things as part of the process. So it is something that is brought to the board in that fashion. And that's the process that they directed that they wanted to have added to the plan amendment procedures manual for privately initiated text amendments.
For the one we get a year. I'm just verifying the quantitative facts.
That has been the average, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there may have been more, but when we did the fee study, what was that, 2 years ago, what the consultant found was on average we had one a year.
Okay. So they didn't mention any burden or hardship on them in any way. They just want the process to run that way.
Yes.
Okay. All right, just checking. Any more questions? Yes, Commissioner Bernstein. Oh, any more? Let me check online, sorry. Make sure I'm not missing Commissioner Handy. No, I don't see any more hands online. So I will thank you for the information, Mr. Anita.
Thank you.
And we will move on to our next item. It is other business, chair's business. I have none, probably brought too much already. Old business, does anybody have any old business? Not seeing any. New business? Yes, Commissioner Powell, go ahead, please.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring one thing to the board's attention that I'd like to see us sort of develop, and Melissa kind of needs some help with maybe guiding this. In my research, whenever we have applicants that are submitting like information, to the board and to staff for review, I don't believe we have any sort of like minimum like requirements on certain data that gets presented, to us in facts and figures. And at our last board meeting I had an issue with a new apartment community that was coming up on Bloomingdale. And the issue that I saw there was how data was presented in terms of the transportation. And it was being postured, from the applicant's transportation person, that they were essentially doing the community a really big favor by bringing in this development that it was going to, reduce transportation by, 1,500 trips, which is false. There was no sort of information that showed what I was trying to boil down to is, hey, what are we currently, what's currently being generated now, and then what are we going to go up to, so that way we can be able to plan for, future, road improvements and future, just traffic issues, and how we are going to be able to plan, for that growth, in the right sort of way. So I think that it would be along those lines, a really, great idea to develop sort of like a minimum standard of, hey, when an applicant is submitting stuff, to us as staff, not just to staff, but also how some of that information is eventually going to get presented, to the public, so that the public can have a better understanding of, hey, this is what's really going to be, happening like in your area. Because that particular development, I'm not just honing in on it, but just really became aware to me how you can really make a presentation skewed, to a different way. And we look at this, each, once a month. And so we have a little bit better understanding that maybe what the general public is going to have, and they don't necessarily have all of the abilities to discern, what's going to be happening and what the impact is going to be, in that particular area by X, plan amendment, development, whatever it may be. But first, let me make sure I'm correct that we don't have any sort of minimum standard of, hey, you have to give us X, Y, and Z, so that way we know, certain factors.
You're correct. The plan amendment application today is rather broad about the, it, I believe, says that they're supposed to provide some information about the impact of their amendment on infrastructure. And it does, I think, has been intentionally broad to some degree because we have quite a variation of applicants. Sometimes it's a mom and pop homeowner, property owner. Sometimes it's somebody very sophisticated, like in that instance. But certainly we could look at some minimum standards that might be able to, that any applicant might be able to provide. That something we could take a look at, see how some other places handle it, and get some ideas from other applications in other jurisdictions and how they might approach it.
Because does the board have any, the VOCC, do they have any sort of requirements, as well? Because I'm just trying to say, versus trying to reinvent the wheel, can we use, there's something already in place, elsewhere?
Well, they do have a transportation methodology, I believe, for the rezoning review process. That I would need to refresh my memory to see what level of zoning it applies to. It may only apply to if you do a PD zoning. Again, trying to aim it at those more complex and sophisticated projects and not the folks who just need to change their zoning to split a lot. But again, at that stage, they also are looking at things like site access and safety improvements in addition to the capacity that is, I think, what you're looking at from a planning standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just distinctly remember one of his slides was showing the peak traffic hours on Bloomingdale, but they omitted the data with including Providence's peak hours, traffic, and even that particular slide already showed that Bloomingdale was over service. I think it was like 1,800 trips, and at that, without factoring in the new that new complex that was being proposed. There's also another one that was, just another block away that is coming up out of the ground, and I know that those numbers weren't being factored in there because they don't know yet. So, just how the information was just, presented, it just didn't seem like it was fair to me, at least from to the public, and I don't think it is the right way to present information for us, to be able to plan, accordingly. And I think that what we could potentially run into a problem down the road is it's really going to really harm development going down because, once the mobility fee, the whole purpose of that is how it's been explained to me was, hey, we took out concurrency, so we don't, that's an element that we don't have to worry about anymore. And we're going to bring in a mobility fee and then, but the mobility fee doesn't really get assessed until further down in the, development services, process, and that, is going to be used for, figuring out, transportation issues and all those things. So since that's getting pushed down, further down the line, I think that we need to know about, transportation issues specifically or especially, ahead of time before you, get all the way down the line and then you've approved, all these projects and, well, and again, I'm not mean to harp on this one particular project, but, I have no idea how you would increase that capacity on that section of Bloomingdale right there. I don't believe there's any more right-of-way, You know, I don't know what's, you know, out there, but I'm sure that there is something, you know, we just have to find it and figure it out. So I think that it would be a really great idea, and I'd love to hear any of my fellow commissioners, you know, chime in on, and Melissa, how we can maybe craft something to just develop some minimum standards on how certain information, you know, is presented, you know, to us, and at least in the public hearing forums. So,
Commissioner Dowdy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I did to try to speak to Commissioner Powell's issue and see if I can't add something into that discussion. I think that presentation that you referred to, them stating there was going to be a reduction and doing a benefit was in comparison to as our staff does. They have to look at the worst possible case of the existing land use. So I believe the applicant was comparing their proposal to the worst possible case of the existing land use, you know, the worst possible traffic pattern they could get from if they did nothing and built to what would be allowed without an amendment versus building what they wanted to do. And I might agree with you that it might have been a little disingenuous as far as how it was presented, but in order to perhaps accomplish what Commissioner Powell is suggesting without requiring every single applicant to perform multiple analyses as far as that goes. And I'm not sure how you would force it because the applicants gets to make their presentation, but if they wish to present information on that line, they might have to do both analyses and actually spell out, just like staff tells us, you know, they have, here's the existing possible, we can have so many homes, we can have so much, you know, industrial, we can have so much. If they want to present traffic information, they can do the analysis and say, hey, this is what the trips would be versus ours. That may be going somewhere along those lines to where we're keeping consistent with our method of reviewing amendments, how our staff goes through the process of reviewing the amendments. And then maybe that takes away the potential confusion that, you know, my fellow commissioner was experiencing with how the information was presented to us. That's a thought.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you. A lot of times when we've got these applicants coming in, and really when we get to the public comment period, what the public comment, they come in and they complain about the traffic and the potential traffic. But as we go through the comprehensive planning process, we don't go into the level of detail of traffic analysis that you would do, that development services would handle, and granting development approvals and doing the rezoning. So I really think we need to make that distinction between what the planning level of analysis is and that development level of analysis. And because I think, number one, the applicant is trying to address the public concern because they know that the traffic is going to be the big comment that comes up when the public starts talking about it, and they want to show that they're doing things. However, we as planning commissioners, we know what's consistent, what's inconsistent with the plan, and we don't need that level of detail to make the decisions that we make as this board. So I think if we're going to develop minimum standards, we need to make that distinction between what we need for a comprehensive plan decision as opposed to a development plan decision. And that's what needs to be presented, and that's what the applicant needs to be held to, as opposed to really getting into the weeds of traffic and really, frankly, trying to placate the public or, you know, using statistics to prove themselves better than perhaps the project might be. So I think that distinction needs to be made, and that's what needs to be presented to the board. Thank you.
Did you go, Commissioner Lincoln? Please go ahead.
I would just offer to build on your comments that I think that with the shift away from concurrency, it's this attempt to unbundle the planning approvals with sort of segment by segment road traffic impact. And the mobility fees kind of allow you to look sort of more at a larger scope of how the project's impacts once you kind of understand the development decision. So I share your concerns, and I often, in looking at planning decisions, I'm like, well, what about what happens 2 streets down? Or you often sort of only get to see a slice. But I do think that the shift in the processes is allowing us to be a little bit more flexible to the benefit of the community.
Yeah, I just wanted to say from my own part, I think I agree with you. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's hard to do in practice. I mean, common wisdom tells you there's lies, and then statistics. So as soon as we set the bar here and set the bar here, they're going to do something to the equation to make it, you know, kind of look this way and look that way. So I don't know. It's a difficult topic, and especially when it comes to transportation. We were just talking about this in a meeting not too long ago, the fact that as a state, you know, the Department of Transportation is years behind in a lot of the things they do, the numbers, the methodologies, and added to that, they come down to the state, the district level, and then as soon as they get to the county and local level, they go, hey, our numbers don't go that far. Our numbers only go to the state level and maybe a little bit past the county level, and the rest of it's on you. You know, so they're, especially in transportation, it's real hard to pin down the specifics, you know, and then you add to the fact that it's such a dynamic system that it's constantly changing, you know what I mean? The shape of cars, how many cars, the weather, the people, the pedestrians, the bikes, it's a million different things. So, I mean, I hear where you're coming from, but I don't know that there's a way that we can stop people from making the statistics look how they want them to look, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
And I agree with that. I mean, they're going to present, you know, the information, you know, as best will favor their project. I'm just trying to figure out a way, and maybe, you know, it was brought up earlier with the governor having the property bill, you know, Bill of Rights, you know, and just having maybe, you know, something, you know, that's, again, I don't want to make the process, you know, very difficult, you know, for the applicants, but there has to be some sort of way to know, for the public to know at least, hey, this is what is currently in place, and this is what, you know, it could go up to. You know, Commissioner Dowdy was, you know, correct that in that particular analysis, you know, the applicant, you know, chose 4 different, you know, scenarios under the SMU category that, you know, could have been allowed, and all of those, to me, being in commercial real estate, I don't think a single one of those would have actually be developed, you know, today into today's development pattern, but I do understand it could be, and I understand why they did that. So be that as it may, I just think that there, you know, would be very, it would just be great for the public to just have some general understanding, some general information, because I think that these sorts of presentations are a big reason what has led to a lot of the transportation issues, you know, in South County, you know, where necessarily I don't think that people may have, you know, known everything that was, you know, going to be coming, and in terms of traffic. And I don't want this to be just a traffic thing. This is just one particular thing that I realized there wasn't some sort of, you know, like minimum, like standard of information, you know, that's just, you know, clear black and white. And it doesn't, I'm not saying it has to be part of their presentation. It should be part of the information submitted to us. So that way, if they don't want to touch on it, they don't have to touch on it, but we should just at least, you know, hey, this is where we're at now, and this is what's going to, you know, happen going forward if X, you know, happens. I'm not saying they got to make a big presentation and analysis. I just think that there should be some sort of minimum information that we are made aware of, so that way, like for future planning, at some point, I think we're going to have to say, you know, you can only do so much, you know, development along these major, you know, like roadways, you know, of, you know, and for traffic, you know, purposes. You can only continue to put so much over here, but, oh, you know, you could do a little bit more, you know, 2 blocks, you know, off of a different street, you know, and accomplish, you know, the same thing. But so that's where I'm trying to come from. But I didn't explain myself, correctly. And I think that it would just be, again, maybe something for a workshop, or I'll let Melissa chime in. I think it would be a really great idea to have something, in place as we're going forward, just to have some minimum information, given to us, so that way we see it. Whether they want to speak on it, that's their problem.
Yes, Ms. Juanita.
If I might, this issue also came up at the Board of County Commissioners. Not surprisingly, they had similar concerns when the item came there. They did transmit it to the state, but they asked for some information on the transportation system that I think we could potentially work with actually the county staff and the Transportation Planning Organization staff to include in their comments, and then us bring forward into our staff reports and presentations. So some of the things they were interested in were just as you spoke about, kind of a more apples to apples. What is the impact of this project, but also what are some of the transportation improvements that are planned or programmed in the area, which there were actually several that DOT had programmed in the area of 301 and Bloomingdale that it was way buried in the backup that you might find that information, but that's something we could bring forward. Additionally, information from HURT on what their service levels and anticipation are. So maybe what we can do is work with our review agencies because that's an objective source of information, as opposed, the applicant's always going to present their best case. That's their job. I'm not faulting them for it, but if we can work with our review agencies and our internal transportation staff to maybe give you and package the information so it's easy for you all and the public to understand what the impacts are. So maybe we take that as a first step. And then at the same time, since we're going to be looking at the procedures manual for the issue of the private text amendments, we could also, see if there's anything that we think could be enhanced in that process as well and bring that to you.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sornita. Thank you for the discussion, Commissioner Powell. On to our next item, because I don't see anybody with lights on. So our last item is 6D, committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Commissioner Rodriguez?
Oh, thank you. The City of Tampa held their Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting on April 21st. Among some of the agenda items we talked about are that the Housing and Community Development Division is backfilling a lot of their positions that they've had open. They're very happy to have the additional manpower to work a lot of the situations that they've got coming up in affordable housing, and that's great that they're getting these people on board. The other thing is the infill phase 2 project. They had a very successful phase 1 partnerships with Domain Homes, Habitat, and East Tampa CDC. Phase 2, they're taking a little different tack. They've put out an RFP, and they've got 14 lots for single-family development. They're getting a lot more developers that will be in this next mix, and they're going to go ahead and work the development of these 14 lots as a phase A, and then phase B, they will open up some larger parcels for some multifamily development. So they're identifying parcels and partners here in the community to increase the affordable housing stock. And just a quick note on the action plan, the city has hired a consultant to help them finish up their action plan, and we'll be hearing from them on that soon. Our next meeting of the committee will be on 21 May. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other committee reports? Did you have one, Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Melissa actually stole it, the MPO's TPO. So.
Stole your thunder, huh? All right. Are there any more committee reports? Yes, Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Update on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. We had a meeting this morning, and the major takeaway, I think that's probably important for us on our side, is going to be on the legislative update. There was a House bill, it's 2512. It was going to statutorily permanently reduce the housing trust funds for the Sadowski Trust. It was originally proposed to be
I'm sorry?
About a 70% reduction.
Hey, sorry, I'm getting ready to do a presentation for the Planning Commission.
Cool. And so there was some pushback on that, and instead of it being a 70% reduction, it's going to be now a 50% reduction for the Sadowski Trust through the dock stamps. But so that's sort of bad. But what did end up being good is that it's going to, guarantee like the end of like sweeping those accounts. So for the upcoming budgetary budget amount, I believe we're going to be receiving totally throughout the state a little over 200 million, which is going to be more than what we have received from the legislature in the past like 12 or 14 years. So it's going to be tied to the dock stamps. So we're going to be, it's not going to be setting like a minimum amount, but dock stamp, revenue income has, steadily been going, up and up. And I think that over time, we'll see, more money being appropriated. Our area got a little over, I think it's like $9.7 million total for Hillsborough County and City of Tampa. So that was like the third highest amount in the state outside of Broward and Miami-Dade.
Sweet. All right, thank you, Commissioner Powell. All right, any more committee reports from the commissioners? Not seeing any. We will come to our final item, item number 7, meeting adjournment. Thank you everyone for your time. This meeting is adjourned at 5:07 p.m. and we will see everyone in 45 minutes, 6 o'clock.
Sure.